here with Christopher Ayres.
Howdy, howdy.
Well-known voice actor around the convention circuit.
Jerk with a big cup.
Yeah, in the Sippy Cup of Doom.
Yes, Sippy Cup of Doom is always with us. Okay, then I'll just leave you too.
Welcome to the AnimeCons.com.
Thank you. Excited to finally be on the interview for AnimeCons.com.
And so we're going to talk about conventions.
Okay.
And tell me about your first convention experience.
The very first convention I ever did, the very first convention, it's hard to say because I used to go to conventions when I was a kid. There were a lot of science fiction and horror conventions in Houston. And so I used to go to any one that I could, and you know, I got to meet people like Ray Harryhausen and Chuck Jones and Jimmy Doohan and people like that. And so it was always very cool to me to get to go and meet people who were involved in an industry that I was fascinated with. So it's kind of strange now to be on the other side of that table. I went with a friend of mine, one of my best friends from high school went with me to a convention that was in his hometown. And he's like, "This is just weird. I remember sitting in the audience with you and us asking questions of people from horror movies, and now there are people sitting in the audience asking you questions about anime." And it's very strange, but it's very, very neat. So, but probably the first anime convention I ever went to was Anime Fest in Dallas. My brother wanted me to meet some of the staff there. Either that or OniCon in Houston. One of those two were my first. Maybe it was OniCon in Houston, and then that was the very first convention that I was ever invited to. Followed that same year by SugoiCon in Kentucky.
That was just a few years ago, right?
That was five,
6.
It's like about 5 years ago. So okay. Yeah, it's been a little while. It's hard to believe. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
But in just a few years, you've now done over 100 conventions.
I know, that's kind of crazy. It's really exciting. It doesn't seem that way, but I was looking at my con list this year, including the ones that haven't announced me. I've got like 22 cons this year.
Yeah, I saw 12 that I think are announced to. So
yeah, I've got a bunch that are still waiting to announce me.
So with 22 conventions, that's almost one every other weekend.
Just about.
How do you manage that?
You really have to be careful. You can't do so many to the point that you can't record.
Right.
Because the reason you're there is because you're working in this industry. It really is, it's kind of a matter of focusing. One of the things that I don't do, I've got several things that I need to take up with other cons that I'm going to soon that I really do need to call them about. I won't call them while I'm here. I do not deal with other conventions or business. I may call somebody who's a friend from another convention and go, "Hey, you won't believe what," because I've done that to you several times. "You will not believe what is happening to me at this convention." But I don't take care of con business at other cons. I consider that very bad form, and that's something that my brother taught me. He's like, no, he said I won't answer calls from other conventions while I am somewhere else. It's just, you know, you've got to be there for the convention and for the attendees. So, you know, it's just a matter of really prioritizing, I guess. I've got a lot of other things on my plate. When I go back to my room, I think about the show that I'm choreographing right now for one of my schools, and which will probably have already opened and closed by the time this airs. But you know, I'll think about that during my off time at a convention, but that's thinking about something completely different. But I try not to deal with more than one con at a time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess that's how to do it. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I do it well, so.
I think you do.
Oh, thank you.
Now, talk about the attendees. You do a number of panels at the conventions, and there's usually some sort of voice actor panel.
Oh yeah, lots of those.
What questions do you like getting at those panels?
I like getting unusual questions. I like getting the questions that we don't always get. Yes, there are the questions that everybody wants to know. How did you get into the industry? How can I get into the industry? And usually when they ask, how did you get into the industry, they're actually wanting to know, how can I get into the industry? These are things that I've learned over time. What is your favorite line? They don't want to know my favorite line. They want to hear me say their favorite line. And I understand this, and that's cool, because you know, I was probably very much the same way with the horror movie actors that I met. But you know, every now and again, someone will come up with a question that you're like, wow. This girl, 2 conventions ago, I believe 2 conventions ago was Arkansas Anime Fest. She said, this is a question I don't know whether anybody's ever asked, and I don't know if it's appropriate. She said, which of your characters that you've played is most like you, and why? And I was like, and all of us on the panel went, oh wow. And it was one of those that actually makes you think.
Yeah.
it's very interesting when somebody knows something about you other than just your voice work. I've often joked that I'm about to go into my solo panel here at Anime Boston, and the solo panels for me at Anime Boston are some of those unique panels I've done because these guys do their homework. Last year here, the panel was partially about anime, and a lot of them knew that I was a musical theater director, so they wanted to ask me questions about musicals. They know that I'm a horror movie fanatic, so part of the panel was about horror movies. Another part was about Shakespeare. They wanted to know my favorite Shakespeare plays because they know that I've also directed classical. They wanted to know about the fight work that I've done. And so it was kind of just this all around, and I guess it's, for me, a panel like that, especially a solo panel, is about what they want to do. I don't try to guide it or steer it any which way. It's whatever they want to know, within reason, I'm willing to answer. So, but no, I've often said, so many of the kids really want to get to know the guests, so many of the attendees. And the easiest way to see a whole different side of us is if you can find out the things that we geek out about. Because and I love talking about anime, so I don't mind it when somebody comes up. Right. But if you can find the other things that I geek out about, you've got my attention and my conversation for hours. So it's always interesting, especially when somebody comes up again. In fact, because of your Anime Unscripted, one time this person walked up, and they're now on guest relations here. They walked up and they said, "Wow, you've done improv before." And I said, "Yes, I love improv." She goes, "No," she didn't even start with that. She said, "I can't tell from watching you in Anime Unscripted, are you a long form or a short form person?" Her just saying that made me know that she knew improv theory. And I was like, "How do you know that?" And all of a sudden we were in this 3-hour conversation about improv and structures and styles and theory, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. So it was yeah. So it's always nice when you can find people who like anime and you can talk about that and talk about the other things that you're interested in. So.
Now you mentioned the fight director.
Yes.
So you do a mock combat for cosplay
yes.
workshop. How did that come about? How did you decide to bring this together?
That came about because of Jan Scott Fraser. It came about because I'm a complainer and Jan is a problem solver. I got really tired of seeing conventions, and I'd seen them both as an attendee when I was going to horror conventions, because they still did cosplay competitions. They didn't call it, they called it costume contests there. I got really tired of seeing people do scenes where the fight work in it was incredibly, A, unsafe, B, poorly staged, or C, both. Well, I've been fight directing and teaching stage combat for 20 years, for a long time. And I'd complain nonstop, just complain. And then there was a convention where there were these two kids who were dressed as Ken and Ryu from Street Fighter. And their fight was not horrible, it wasn't great, but Ken threw a kick and Ryu dove out of the way, and Ken put his foot through the wall of a brand new convention center. Very young con, brand new convention center, foot through a wall. And the kid busted his ankle and had to go to the hospital. And at that point, I am ranting and raving, and Jan Scott Fraser said, well, you know what, Chris? You teach stage combat to high schools, to middle schools, to colleges, to theaters. You are one of the few people in this industry who is trained to do anything about this and already does classes like this, so you need to either put up or shut up, and you need to do a class. And true to my form, I said, okay, I'll think about it. And true to Jan's form, she called the very next convention I was going to and said, you need to get, Chris Ayres does this amazing stage combat for cosplay workshop. I think it's called Mock Combat for Cosplay. I didn't even come up with the name. Jan Scott Fraser created the name. She's like, you need to get him to do this. So the con calls me and goes, Chris, we really want your Mock Combat for Cosplay workshop. And I'm like, okay, great. And they're like, how long do you need? And I know stage combat. I'm like, to do a beginning class, even basics, I need at least 2 hours. I said, I've got to have at least 2 to 2.5 hours. Done. I'm like, okay, click. Okay, start making notes about what I need to cover, you know. And it's really become my signature panel. And now with Carly Mosher also being a guest on the circuit because she's a voice actress, Carly's been my assistant for stage combat for like 7 or 8 years now, or longer. She's been fighting for me even longer than that on stage, and it's nice having a second set of hands. But the workshops have been going on so long, and anytime I've got a new person, I have to start from the beginning. I have to start from basics, baby steps, 1 to 2 to 3. And a person that's taken this workshop, Amanda and Emily, they take it in the Midwest. They were really hoping when Carly was there that we were going to cover new stuff, but we had new people, so it was my basic beginning class. And Carly and I were talking after they were like, man, we were really hoping for some new stuff. Carly and I started talking, and I've had attendees that have taken this class upwards of 12 times. They'll take it at Segoy, then I'll see them at Sogan, and then I'll see them at Detour, and then I'll see them at OMG, and I'll see them at all these, and they always are taking the beginning class over and over. And I noticed that as I start to have a problem, like I'm helping fix somebody, and somebody goes, Chris, I have a problem, I will go, Andy, Katrina, go look at them. And these are the people that have taken the class over and over. And I started to realize, these people, they need more. So just the end of last year, actually at Segoy last year, I started doing an intermediate workshop, and we had an amazing turnout. We got some. I'll have to show you. I've got a video clip that I'll have to show you later that you'll just go, wow. It's been very good. And usually the intermediate workshop, you get some really, really impressive stuff happening. So, it's been very successful. I'm very pleased. I'm starting to see it pay off in cosplay competitions and stuff. I have kids, I say kids, and some of them are almost my age, that will put like their fight from their cosplay up on YouTube and send me an email saying, hey, look, I've put this up on YouTube. Could you please watch it and tell us what we need to work on? And that's really gratifying that they want me to even continue helping outside of the workshop. And I'm always happy to look at it and go, okay, look, your angle's off on this. And, I'm always happy as long as I've got time, as long as I'm not living in the studio, it's all good.
And you always keep the people safe.
That is the most important thing. My number one priority is for them to be safe, and then for them to have a good fight, and then for them to have fun. Like I say in the workshop, if stage combat were any easier, it would be called football. So I also say that about tap dancing too. So. Another question.
Now, are there any conventions or any areas where you'd like to go to a convention? Somebody to bring you out to? Have you been to Hawaii? Usually people... HawaiiCon is an excuse to see.
I went to Hawaii. I was in Hawaii for a month when I was on tour with Peter Pan, with the National Tour Broadway company Peter Pan. So I lived in Hawaii for a month. It would be nice just to meet the people out there. My whole thing is, you will not find me begging a convention to say, oh, please bring me out, please bring. That's not my style. If a con wants me, then I'm more than happy to come. As long as they don't book me on the same weekend, I've already said yes to another con. That's one thing. Whoever I say yes to first, they're the ones who have me. And I've been very lucky. A lot of the cons that I really love already know there's at least 2 cons that I do that really want me as a return guest every year. And I so appreciate it because I love their staff and I love their attendees. And so what happens is, on Sunday night, after the Dead Dog party and everything, I'm packing, and the con chair comes to my room, and he says, by the way, here are our dates for next year. Can you confirm? Well, nobody books you a year out. No one does. So I'm like, I'm fairly sure, just make sure that I get an email this week. So, because once I get an email, I can look on my calendar and say, no, I have nothing that weekend, so I'm going to put your name down. In fact, there's one con that was so worried, they've booked me for 2 years. They booked me for this year and next year. Wow. So, and it's one that I really enjoy doing. So I can't say which con because they haven't even announced me for this year yet, but they've got me for 2 years. But it's one that I have not missed since I started doing cons. So that's the only secret I'll say.
Is there anything that you see some conventions do that you'd like to see other conventions?
Oh yes. Oh gosh, yes. I see the coolest thing. There are not a lot of industry guests that do anything at all related to cosplay, and I love the cosplayers. They're so much fun. And some actors are a little wigged out by them. Some are like, oh my god, I don't know what to do. Anime Detour, and I will give them props for this. They do this thing that almost forces an interaction between guests and attendees. They don't have a whole cosplay contest like a lot of conventions do. Instead, every guest gets anywhere from 4 to 6 buttons that are Guest of Honor Hall Cosplay Award. And as you're going through your day in the convention, if you see somebody and you really think it's an outstanding costume, you just walk up and you give them one of the badges and say, I'm one of the guests. We've been asked to give these to people that we think are outstanding cosplayers. And it really gives you some wonderful interaction between a guest and just a random person at the convention who has worked really hard on their costume or may have embodied the character, who may not be brave enough to jump up on stage for the contest, but it does recognize the work that it does. And I had one girl this year who wrote to me much later than Detour this year. I was like, thank you so much. I went the whole weekend and no one said anything about my costume. And then all of a sudden, she said, I hadn't seen you. And then I saw you on Saturday and you just went crazy and you gave me an award. And there's another one, this tiny little girl. Oh my God, I love her. She's a little tiny. Well, she's not now. She's a little older, but she's probably about 6 or 7. And she was dressed as one of Carrie Savage's character. I forget which one. It's this little dog-looking thing. And she was so cute. I was like, oh my God, you're precious. You get the whole cosplay award. From that point on, I see her usually at 3 conventions a year. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I hear this high-pitched scream of, Chris! And I turn around and here she is running at me full tilt, just jumps on me. Now, I've got a bad knee and a bad back, so I don't usually let people just glomp me. But she is so tiny. She's getting bigger, so I'm going to have to find I can't jump on Chris anymore. But I'm like, oh, it's my girlfriend. I've become friends with the whole family. Her sisters are wonderful. Her father and stepmother cosplay with them. In fact, the past couple of times, they've come up with whole themes for the family. And everybody in the family dresses a character from this game or a character from this show. So it's something they can do together. And it's really cool, but I've met some amazing people and made some lasting connections. Because of this one it doesn't cost a lot to have a button with, Anime Detour's logo, and just at the top it says Guest of Honor Cosplay Award. It's very simple, and I recommended it to so many conventions. People were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And nobody ever does it, so I'm putting it out there. Any convention, you should do this. It's a great idea. Anime Detour does it. It really rocks. So do it.
Somebody will see this. And
Good.
Hopefully. Anything you want to promote?
Oh, shows?
Anything?
Oh, I hate this. You are so evil. No, I've got a couple of shows I'm working on right now that I've signed very, very tough non-disclosure agreements, so I can't talk about them yet. It kills me.
So you can't tell people you're going to be on Caprica?
No. No, I'm not going to be on Caprica. Sorry. No. I wish I was on Lost.
The final episode.
I wish I was on the final episodes of Lost, but that's not going to happen either. No, I've got a lot of convention appearances coming up. You can find them on my website. You can actually find them on the AnimeCons.com website, because when I don't remember where I'm going, I'm like, let me go to AnimeCons.com. Oh yeah, that's where I'm going. Oh, I'm going to be there? Okay, cool.
I just hope the list is current.
No, it usually is. Usually as soon as I update, you update. So I'm like, oh good, he's got it. Because I won't update my website until a convention announces me. I don't want to steal their...
And we're the same one.
Yeah, exactly. So you may know that I'm going somewhere. Because I could tell you what those two... You probably have already guessed, but I don't want to steal their press releases and their thunder. But no, you can always keep up with what I'm doing at www.ChristopherAyres-va.com. That's my website. Also, I got a Facebook, and I'm all the time going, hey, I'm heading to Anime Boston. I think I did 3 different things. Like, I'm heading to Boston. Get ready, Boston. Here I come. So it's fairly obvious where I'm going to be heading. I know my next convention is Anime Detour in Minneapolis in the middle of April. And after that, I'm trying to think of what I can talk about. After that, I believe it's Anime North in May. Which will be my first time there. I've really that's one that I've been wanting to go to. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I've got some friends up in Toronto, so that should be fun.
I've been there a couple times.
I've heard the people that I've dealt with there have been really nice.
It's Canada.
Yeah, exactly. It's Canada. They're always nice. Oh God, there's another one that I'm doing up in that area of the country, but they haven't announced me yet, so I can't say anything. you know, of course, there are a lot of standards that I will be at, like OMG Con, which I love, and Sugoi Con, and I'm trying to think which ones have not announced me. See, that's the problem. I don't know. I'm going to be at San Japan again, which I really enjoy. They've announced me. I don't know who I'm going to be.
Well, then check the website.
Yeah, you can just check my website. That's the easiest way to do it, because I'm not real bright.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Keep checking out AnimeCons.com.